Hello guys, welcome to Mathematical Bridge channel. So today we are going to learn theorems related to congruence, and which is I believe the most important part of number theory. This video is also important for those preparing for pre-RMO, RMO, INMO, and so let's start. So here we have the Fermat's theorem, which says that a raised to p minus 1 is congruent to 1 mod p. So I am going to give you a proof of this theorem. It's a very elegant proof. So let's say we have a number a, and this thing is valid for uh, GCD of a and p has to be equal to 1. So a cannot be divisible by p, then it would not this theorem will not hold true. So let's start. So let's say our number is a, and for some prime there will be some remainder r1 mod p. We don't know the remainder. And for a into 2 we would have some remainder r2 mod p, and this will go on all till a into p minus 1 is equal to 1 mod r r rp minus 1 mod p for some remainder r. And if you'll notice that these r1 r2 rp minus 1 cannot be equal to p. And why it cannot be equal to p? Why cannot be it be 0? Because p minus 1, p minus 2, and all these are not divisible by p, and a is and we know that a is co-prime to p. A is co-prime to p. So this means that our remainder cannot be divisible by p, because if it is divisible by p, then it would mean that p divides a into p minus 1 minus if our remainder is divisible by p, so if it is 0, then it would mean that p divides a into p minus 1 or p minus 2 and any other. So it would mean that p is dividing a, or p is dividing these p minus 1, p minus 2 and 1. So it would mean that p, but we know that GCD of a and p is 1, so it cannot be possible. This case cannot be possible here. So p dividing a is not possible. Or we had the second case, p divides p minus 1, p minus 2, dot 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 1. They cannot divide. So in both cases we do not have a solution. So this means that the remainder cannot be divisible by p. So this means a into 1 would leave a remainder which is either 1 or 2 or 3 or p minus 1. Okay. Now, similarly, a into 2 will also leave a remainder either 1 or 2 or dot 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 p minus 1. Now, until a into p minus 1, 1 or 2 or 3 or p minus 1. Now, if you'll notice that these remainders are actually distinct. So what I mean to say is that a into 1 would leave a remainder, let's say 2. Then it means that a into 2 cannot leave a remainder 2. They both will have distinct remainders. So how will we prove this? So we'll do this by contradiction. So for sake of contradiction, we'll assume FSOC. So we'll assume that they both have same remainders. Then a into x minus y, a into x is congruent to, let's say, r1. Then there also exists another number which is congruent to r1. Let's say that is possible. So we will have that a into x minus y is divisible by p. But if you'll notice that x minus y cannot be divisible by p, because then they will have to be congruent, and which is not possible. They will have to be same. X is equal to y, which is not possible. So it x minus y cannot be divisible by p, and p is not divisible by a because a is co-prime to p. So this means that a into 1 would leave a distinct remainder r1, a into 2 will lead a distinct remainder r2, and so on. And we also know that they belong to the set of these numbers. S is equal to, so they belong to this set which is 1, 1, 2, 3. P is a prime. So if you will multiply all these congruences, so we'll use this property which we had used before. If you remember, if you watched the previous video, then you would remember that we use this property here, AC is equal to BD mod n. So we'll use this property now also in proving Fermat's little theorem. So we will have that we'll multiply all congruences. So we'll have a into 1 dot 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 into p minus 1 is equal to. Now it's not necessary that a into 1 is leaving 1 only as remainder. It can leave any other number. But we know that they have to leave remainders distinct. So this means that in some order, 1 would be there, 2 would also be there, 3 would also be there, until p minus 1 also be there. Mod p. This is a very difficult part. So a into p minus 1 factorial p minus 1 factorial, and this is a raised to p minus 1 times because a is multiplied p minus 1 times, we know this. So p minus 1 factorial. So we'll have p minus 1 factorial into a raised to p minus 1, a raised to p minus 1 is divisible by p. Now 0 mod p. Now we know that p is a prime, and so we know that 1, 2, 3 dot 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 p minus 1 are all co-prime to p. So this means that p does not divide p minus 1 factorial. So this means p has to divide a raised to p minus 1 minus 1. So this means that a raised to p minus 1 is congruent to 1 mod p. This was the proof. So I know it was a very difficult one. It's very difficult at the first glance. So just absorb the whole thing what you watched. So anyway, let's move on. So now we have Wilson's theorem. So Wilson's theorem is very related to factorials and congruences. So Wilson's theorem says that p minus 1 factorial is congruent to minus 1 mod p. So if we have a number prime, let's say 5. So we see that 4 factorial is 24, and 24 plus 1 is divisible by 5, 25, we know that. So this means that 4 factorial is congruent to minus 1 mod 5. And you will check, if you'll check it for all primes, then it is true. Now, but what's the proof of it? So I'll give you an insight and idea, but not the whole proof. So we have 1 into 2 into p minus 1. So let's say it is 1 into 2 into 3 into 4. So 4 into 3 is congruent to 2 mod 5. Now 2 into 1. 1 is congruent to 1 mod 5, we know this. Now 4 is congruent to minus 1 mod 5. So we have 1 into 4 congruent to minus 1 mod 5. Now if you'll notice that 2 into 3 is congruent to 1 mod 5. So we get that 1 into 2 into 3 into 4 is congruent to minus 1 mod 5. So what was the basic idea is that 1 into p minus 1 is congruent to minus 1 mod 5. And so 2 into something. So there is another number which, so what is 3 is basically 3 is into 2 is congruent to 1 mod 5. So what this means is that 3 is, you can write it in inverse modular terms. So what this basically means is that 2 inverse mod p. So this means that there are unique inverses. Of every number. So this was the basic idea that there exists unique inverses like this. You can find the full proof in the internet if you want to see. So anyway, let's move on. So now this is a very basic thing here. We have, let's first remove this shit we have right here. So it's very untidy. So n can be written as, if you will see that if it is a 3-digit number, 345, so it is written in 3 into 100 plus 4 into 10 plus 5. So what we, it is the basic algorithm of to writing a number in its form of digits is 10 raised to an dot 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 plus a naught. So sum of digits is equal to a n dot 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 plus a naught. So n, if you'll see that n minus will denote sum of digits by Sn. So we will have 10 raised to an, 10 raised to n minus 1 an dot 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 and a naught and a naught would cancel, so we will have 9a1. Now 10 minus 1 is divisible by 9, but we have to also prove it for everything. So how will we prove it? It's very simple. We know the from the property of congruence, 10 is congruent to 1 mod 9. So 10 raised to any number, 10 raised to, let's say, k, is 1 raised to k, and 1 raised to k is 1. So 1 mod 9. So this means that here these brackets are divisible by 9, every bracket. So this means that 9 is also divisible by n minus Sn is also divisible by 9. So we can write it in congruence term to be n is equal to Sn mod 9. First exam. So this also means and so this is so if you know that there is a, the trick that you have learned, that sum of digits, if sum of digits is divisible by 3, then only a number is divisible by 3, and if number is divisible by 3 and sum of digits is also divisible by 3, so that's from it came from, because n minus Sn, if it is divisible by 9, then 3 also has to divide n minus Sn. It's very logical. So this means that so now let's move on to our phi function. So what is basically the phi function? It's very dangerous symbol right here, but let me go through this fast. So so the phi function is basically uh, the fast way to calculate the number of positive co-prime integers to the number. So for example, we have 6. So the numbers which are co-prime less than 8 are 2, 3, 4, 6 are not co-prime. So 1 and 5 are co-prime ones. So then phi of 6, I don't have the symbol here, so I cannot do that. So phi of 6 is equal to 2, and so on. So this was an example. And what about for in general all numbers? How can we calculate it? There should be a fast way to calculate, isn't it? So here it is. So what this means that phi of n is n into 1 minus 1 upon p, 1 minus 1 upon q. So you can try it and prove it yourself. uh, it would take you, it would so comment down your proof of this phi of n is equal to n into 1 minus 1 upon p. So I'll help you. So the basic idea is, so the hint is to prove this Euler function. So I'll first explain the formula because it is difficult to understand it in that way. So if n has, let's say it is phi of n is, first let's describe n. So if the number is n is equal to p1 raised to a1 into p2 raised to a2. So it's the factorization of the number. If you attended, if you watched the recorded class of recorded lecture of mine in the first lecture, so you would know. So n is equal to, so this is the factorization. So there are n primes in its factorization. So then it means that phi of n would be equal to n into 1 minus 1 upon p1 into 1 minus 1 upon pn. So all primes. So this is what you have to prove, and the hint is comment down it. Okay, comment down your proof. So the hint is inclusion and exclusion principle. So use some combinatorics and you'll get your answer. And another hint, I will give it with an example. So if phi of p into q, so p and q are two primes. So it is p minus 1 into q minus 1, phi of pq. Okay, so let's move on. So here we have the Chinese remainder theorem. So it's a very what should I say? Many of you would know it, and it's very famous because of its name, Chinese remainder theorem. So, but what it is basically? So it is, so we know that we need to sometimes solve congruences. So if what we have many congruences, so for an example, x, so Chinese remainder theorem is basically used to solve a question. So this is a question right here. So we have, there are number of chocolates are 354. Let's take a smaller example, 15. Number of children, okay. Number of children are 15. So this is an example of where Chinese remainder theorem is used. So number of children are 15. Let's change it. So number of children are 7. So if each time, so if first children, first child takes out 3 chocolates. So we don't know we need to find the number of chocolates, which is unknown. Then the other 6 can eat, can distribute equally the chocolates among themselves. Now if second takes 5 chocolates, 2 people take in total then find, and the other 5 can distribute equally. Other 5 of them can so same condition. So we can represent this problem in the form of congruences. So it's a very childish problem looking, but we can uh, but it's actually difficult to solve it. So the first child takes out 3 chocolates, another 6 can distribute equally. So what this means that if there are n chocolates, so n minus 3 chocolates would remain. So this means that if everyone would get a chocolate distribute equally, so this means that 6 has to divide n minus 3. For example, we have, let's say, 7 chocolates, 9 chocolates. So if one person takes 3 chocolates, then there would be 6, and now 6 people. So each one can take 1 chocolate each. Takes 1 chocolate each. Now, so basically you can write it in congruence form as n is equal to congruent to 3 mod 6. Similarly, we can write n is equal to 9 mod 5, because 9 chocolates would be taken, so n minus 9 is divisible by 5. Now if you'll notice that n is equal to 9 mod 5 basically means that n is congruent to 4 mod 5. And the question asked is find minimum number of chocolates uh, which uh, which are required to satisfy these conditions. So n is 3 mod 6 and n is 4 mod 5. So what does Chinese remainder theorem tells us? That if there are these congruences here, we have 2 congruences, let's remove this. So it tells us that there exists a solution n is equal to ri r1 mod, so product of this. So if these are both are co-prime, 6 and 5 are co-prime, so numbers which are co-prime, then there exists a solution of their products. So there can be also 3 congruents also, but for simplification, for understanding purposes, I have taken 2 only. So what this theorem tells us that there exists a particular remainder. So how we will so it only tells us how to that there exists, but we have to find it on ourselves. So let's find it. So we know that 30. Now we know that also know that n is equal to 3 mod 6, and so this also means is that n is also congruent to, so if n is equal to 30k plus r1, then if we'll work this out in mod 6, we'll get that 6 divides 30k, so r1 has to be 3 mod 6. And we know that Chinese remainder thing there exists a remainder. So we need to check for basically 3, 9, 15, 21, 27. So let's find it out. So if it is 3, n is equal to 3 mod 30, then we'll see that it leaves a remainder 3 on division by 5. So this case is rejected. Now if we'll check for n is equal to 9 mod 30, we'll see that 5k plus 9, 30k plus 9. So let's check on mod 5. So 5 into 6k. So and 9 is 4 mod 5. So this is correct. So thus we have a n. So n is 30 into k plus 9. N is equal to 9 mod 30. So the minimum number of chocolates that satisfy our condition is 9. You are wrong, because I know that many people of you would just solve the congruence and get the answer to be 9. But you have to sometimes also be practical in the question, because here it is mentioned that total 9 chocolates. So if there are only 9, then the left there will be no chocolates left. So, people cannot distribute equally. Although it is mathematically correct that uh, 5 divides 0, but we have to see it in a practical aspect also. So this means that n, so the next number which is satisfied condition is 30 into 1 plus 9, which is 39. So let's check if it is correct. So if the first person takes 6 chocolate, 3 chocolates, 36, does it divide 6? Yes. So 6 chocolates for each person. Now let's check for the second condition. 2 people take it in total 9 chocolates. So 39 minus 9 we get 30, and 5 people, so each person would get again 6 chocolates. Let's move on. I hope you understood the idea behind the Chinese remainder theorem and its applications. Let's move on to our next theorem. So it is Euler's theorem. So this Euler's theorem, I want to Euler's theorem. So Euler's theorem we have. So it is a raised to phi of m. Phi we have just learned. Phi of m. And phi of m. So for any number m, and condition is here, GCD of a of m is 1. This is a very important condition. Don't forget it. So uh, the idea used to prove Euler's theorem is similar to our idea used to prove Euler's theorem is similar to our Fermat's theorem. So I would give a task for you all to prove this. So it's the same idea used to prove Fermat's theorem. So comment down your proof of Euler's theorem, and don't comment down the whole proof because it would be very long. Just brief it out. So let's move on to our next theorem, which is Legendre's theorem. So it is a very important theorem. It always comes in PRM. So what is the use of this theorem? So for example, we have 15 factorial. So to find the power of a prime number in this, it is used. So let's check it out. So 1 into 3, 3, 6, 9. So 3, 6, 9, 12, and we have 15. So 3, so these are the only numbers divisible by 3. Now we'll calculate the powers in these numbers. So 3 raised to 1. Here also we have 3 raised to 1 as the maximum power. 3 square, and we have 3 into 4. 3, and again we have 3. So if you'll count it all the exponents, 1 plus 1, 2, 2, 4, 4, 6, 4, so we'll have 6. So now it's a easy algorithm to calculate, but what if we have a very large number like this one, 1000, and we have to calculate the power of 3 in it? Then we cannot go on doing like this, no? We cannot do this 3 into 6 into 9 dot dot dot. We'll have into 9, 19. We cannot go on doing this thing. So to easier this out, Legendre's theorem is used. So it states that if we have a number n factorial, then the power of a prime in it would be n gif of n by p raised to 1 plus gif of n by p square plus gif of, it will go on till p raised to x for some x. So this number would be, has to be less than n. P raised to x has to be less than n, and the next exponent would have to be greater than n. Then our algorithm would stop, our formula would stop. So let's check if it is true. 15 by 3, gif of 15 by 3 plus gif of 15 by 9. Now 15 by 3 is 5, so we'll write 5. Gif of 5 is 5. And this is 1.666 something, so gif of it would be 1. So we have power of 3 as 6, and it is true. This was the basic idea of it. So now there is a question which I am giving, which you have to comment down below. So it is answer to that question. So find the remainder on division by 33 raised to 33 division by 7. So it is divided by 7. Then find the remainder on division by 7. So when 3 raised to 3 is r1 mod 7, and find the remainder. So anyway, I hope you liked the lecture and got to learn a lot. So subscribe to Mathematical Bridge, share the video, and hit the like button. And also you can join our Telegram channel for such amazing questions. So thank you.